Brett, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We just recorded this, or part of this, or thought we recorded it, and didn't. So
35 minutes.
So when I say thanks for being here,
content.
Thanks for being here again, and hopefully we're gonna get the videography down. So great. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with Salesforce. Obviously, we both went to the same master's degree program in information systems management. You were a year ahead of me, and you got hooked up with Chiasma Business Consulting. Talk a little bit about how that happened and then where that led.
Yeah, so I met my boss in a class, actually, in the program, and told him that I was looking for a job, and went and met with him and got a job on the spot to start doing Salesforce consulting. So no, I did not pick, I'm going to do Salesforce consulting.
It was not a calculated move.
No, it was not a calculated move. It was very much, I happened to stumble upon it, and it's paid off in spades.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. And certainly I actually specifically didn't want to be, cornered into Salesforce consulting, and yet somehow I ended up here. So it has a way of doing that. So you started on the development side, and then got more involved in sort of client-facing roles. Talk a little bit about that transition of working as a developer, getting more client-facing. What's that like? What was difficult? What was good? Talk about what that transition was like.
Yeah, so for me it was good. I know in general you have the stigma around developers that developers can't talk with people. I love that stigma because it immediately breaks down barriers for consulting. It's like, oh, he's just a developer. Yes, that's exactly what I want you to think, is that I'm just a developer. Because then we can solve problems, we can move forward. You don't feel like I'm trying to sell you, even if I am trying to sell you on something, but it's for your benefit, not just because I want money, because it didn't do me any good.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, that was a prime switch, and it worked out really well. I had a lot of background on the Salesforce architecture, generally how everything in the back end worked, which helped me figure out, how we should be architecting things and stuff like that. What would make the most sense in the long term for the client.
What about getting up to speed on like the declarative side, making sure you weren't sort of over designing things? What was helpful in that transition?
I would say a lot of that was digging into some of the trailheads and things like that. I had experience prior with using your typical process builders and workflows and things like that. I hadn't really dug into flows as much, and those were always like the bane of my existence because they were hard to control and not know what's going on. I actually have a love for flows now. If I can do a flow over code, I will do that all day, every day. And so it's been a continuous transition to go more of that route and to get out of the original kind of habit of doing code and solving problems with code to, okay, what makes it so that I can get home and spend time with my kids without thinking about other crap? Wow, flow is great. I will totally do a flow if that's
a lot easier to train someone else on a flow.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Awesome. So then you did consulting for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the best part of that experience, and then what was it that drove you to go get more involved working with an end user company?
Yeah. So what I liked most about consulting was the breadth of what we could do. Different companies that we'd get to see how they functioned, and from manufacturing, supply chain, real estate, so on and so forth. And so you get a lot of breadth of how companies are run. You start understanding their sales processes as well and seeing the overlap between different companies and stuff like that. So that was really good from a consulting side. And then I just got to the point where I wanted to do more focused stuff. I wanted to feel like I was making a bigger change. And I also wanted to use Salesforce and kind of push it to its limits of what it's really capable of doing. Whereas in consulting, it's a lot of cookie cutter, redo the same stuff over again. And in development, it wasn't as much that way, but when I got more into the consulting stuff, it was a very cookie cutter, where it's like, yeah, I've already done this like 15 times. I really don't want to do this again. I'm already bored of doing this.
Yeah.
So.
No, that makes sense. And definitely, consultants get expensive, so companies, you don't usually as a consultant get to see the project all the way through to the end. You just get the momentum rolling, and then more often than not, you don't see that tail end. So that makes perfect sense. And then, I think what you guys have done in terms of building your whole business, really making Salesforce a central piece of it, that's something that you can't really get that type of experience if you're constantly moving between projects. Yeah. All All right, let's share some things with anyone who's been interested enough in your story to watch 5-6 minutes in here, and share with them something they can add to their toolbox. What are you excited about on the platform right now?
Cool. So yeah, I'd say a couple things I'm most excited about right now are Lightning Web Components. I'm very excited about where Salesforce is planning on going. I'm very happy that they're getting on more of the traditional web standards rather than doing their own thing, which is cool. It opens it up a lot more doors for a lot more developers and people alike to move into that platform, which is, I think, their full play anyways, which is why I'm still working on Salesforce. So cool architecture things, changes that they're making too on the Lightning Web Components that we'll be able to do. It'll be more API focused rather than kind of this hard-coded controller side Apex stuff. So very excited to see where they go and how they take that since it's still in the early stages. But from a tool standpoint, I would say one that I'm most impressed with right now is Gearset. So Gearset allows you to do essentially all of your development or DevOps and control the end-to-end. You know, if anybody's ever done a deployment with the change set, trying to remember what you changed even a week ago is painful at times. Like, oh crap, did I change that field? Did I add that field to that one place?
Did someone else log in?
Did someone else log in and change crap that I didn't know that they changed?
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So this takes care of all that, so you can compare orgs. So for example, we have a staging sandbox, so we can compare staging to what's in production, say, okay, what's changed. I also get alerts if anybody changes crap in production. I mean, we're talking granular level, like the CEO changed some fields on a layout yesterday, and I got an email notification, so you bet your bottom dollar I walked in like, dude, why are you changing fields on a layout? And so, not that he doesn't know what he's doing, but it's still...
But just
for him
to keep a handle on where...
Exactly, and for him, that's the bigger impact of like, okay, now we've got visibility and stuff, and that gets him excited about things too. So yeah, awesome. So it also has rollback strategies, so if you need to roll back, if you messed up a deployment or whatever, you can roll back to the original version. They also have continuous integration for those that do development that will know what that is. So yeah, you can continuously deploy your changes to, you know, an environment, production if you want to, so that you're always rolling out new and better changes.
Awesome.
So
that sounds awesome. I mean, what's the cost on Gearset?
So it's either $150 or per user per month, or $300 per user per month.
And that's just for users using Gearset.
Correct. Yeah, it's not Salesforce users. You don't have to pay for every single Salesforce user. This is just like, if you have one admin, you would have one license. I mean, even if you had 5 admins, you could still have one license if you wanted to. It's just what works best for you and your company. So, but to me, that money is dwarfed by the amount of value that you can get out of it. For those that experience maybe that big crash that Salesforce had with all the profiles, yeah, Gearset could have helped you easily roll back all your profiles and everything else like that, because they take snapshots of all of your metadata, and so yeah, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal for most people.
Makes sense.
So,
and then do they do data backup as well?
So they can do some data stuff. I haven't really dug too far into what they can do on the data side, but I know you can move data between orgs, which is handy if you're doing developer orgs and stuff like that to move data. For us, it didn't really make sense because we have all of our data inside or we use SFDX to pull it out into JSON files.
Gotcha.
And then just data load, or not, it's not even a data load, it's an SFDX load into the sandbox,
Gotcha.
which works plenty well for what we need right now.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that sounds really powerful, especially, you know, a lot of companies that I work with, I see that friction, that pain of not knowing what's been changed in what environment, pushing changes. What has it done in terms of accelerating your deployment times, or you know, does it make it a lot faster? Because it's another thing I've seen companies wrestle with is, like, man, it takes us a long time to get the change set put together, to put it up in, upload it, deploy it, you know, obviously even, or maybe you validated it and then someone changed something in production, then you go to deploy it, and now your deploy fails, and then just all sorts of friction points like that. Have you guys seen a big difference with that?
So we're still in the very early stages of trying to figure out ultimately what we want the whole end-to-end cycle look like, what we want the end-to-end cycle to look like. And so I can't really give you too much information on that front. We've just been very happy with a lot of the visibility and stuff that it gives us, so that we can see, okay, these things changed, you know, are they going to cause conflicts? Oh crap, we deployed something that broke. Now we can quickly roll back to the
And
previous.
you guys already
program.
spent a lot of time speeding up that cycle.
Yeah, we compared to
Previous.
most companies, we actually have a very, very accelerated development cycle. I mean, we're deploying. Honestly, we can deploy every day if we really wanted to, and sometimes we do deploy every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Code, we're not talking process builder or like a field. We're talking code end to end, connected with everything else that is working, and it's a very streamlined process that we have right now. Gearset connects into that streamlined process we've already built and just kind of enhances us and gives us more visibility. It also makes it easier for admins to come in. Any changes that they make, they don't have to learn SFDX and figure out how they're going to get it into our repo, on Bitbucket or whatever, GitHub.
Sure.
That this tool handles that whole thing, so you can actually pull data, all your metadata from an org and push it into Bitbucket. So now you've got version control of all your metadata, where it really should be and where Salesforce is pushing it, but as an admin, not as a developer.
That's really cool, yeah, because certainly admins, I think there's still a big friction around DX. They're not going to be obviously using a lot of those tools.
Yep.
That's cool that helps bridge that gap.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about, war stories. Let's talk about, we obviously have been in the trenches together, done various work together, and this part of the video podcast, really what I'm looking for is, I think a lot of times as consultants, as Salesforce professionals, we get together, we swap these stories, we talk about things we've been through. There's a lot of value there that maybe businesses don't see or don't hear about. Do you have a war story you want to talk about, or should I lay out an example we could talk through?
Well, if you want me to, I can tell the people listening the one that I had earlier with the emails.
Yes, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so, so I had this brainy idea to add a profile to a community without unchecking the send welcome email box, which then sent out about 5,000 or 6,000 emails to our customers inadvertently, and it was kind of touchy, especially with our customer base and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a fun fire running around trying to figure out how we're going to smooth this whole thing over and hopefully make it actually work out to our advantage rather than being this detriment to us. So.
And how did you figure that out? I mean, obviously the way these things go, you make some mistake or some issue comes up. Talk to me about how you identified the problem and then how you went about kind of trying to reconcile it.
Yeah, so actually one of my coworkers got an email, a welcome email, and said, "Hey, did you mean to send this?" Oh, crap. No, did not mean to send that. And then one of my other coworkers came in and said, "Hey, we're getting a lot of emails from customers saying that they're confused about this new welcome email that's making them part of the OVO platform when they're already part of the OVO platform." And so, essentially getting our arms around how many people were affected, who was affected, was the first priority. And then from there, it was like, okay, how do we smooth this out and actually make it work out to our advantage? So, as we like to say, turning lemons to lemonade, where it's like, oh crap, here's this lemon. Now, how do we actually make it good and make it a positive thing rather than this negative thing? And so that's what we ultimately focused on. So we sent out another email saying, hey, we meant to send you an email about this new knowledge base because we wanted you to know about it, but this is the email that was actually supposed to go out. And so it smoothed over everything, all the confusion, but also was a form of marketing for us. It got out in front of all of our customers and stuff like that. So it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, every business goes through, like, you make some mistake and then you just got to find a way to spin it into something that's helps reduce the confusion as quick as possible, for sure. Next up, I wanted to give you a chance to ask me a question, and I do know what you asked me last time, so you can ask me the same question. The idea was that I'd come in with no knowledge of the question, but given our technical difficulties and my lack of expertise, so you can ask me the same question or something else, whatever you want.
I'm trying to decide if I want to ask you a different question or not. You know what? We'll ask you the same one. What's your biggest? You know what? We're gonna spin it a little bit. What's your biggest pain point right now? Not necessarily with business, if that's the direction you want to go. Great.
Okay.
But what's your biggest pain point right now? Life or like
Oh yeah, no, that is a little different. Okay, what's my biggest pain point?
Yeah. What's something that you're struggling with the most?
Yeah, probably
And it might be
similar,
the same thing that we
similar
talked about.
but different. I mean, so time. I mean, time is probably my biggest pain point. I'm doing a lot of things. So I'm spending a lot of time on sales and on business development. I'm spending a lot of time on delivering for my clients. I'm spending time for God knows what reason on things like this. And trying to provide content and value to the community. So there's a lot of things going on, and then on top of that, I've got a newborn that I'm trying to support my wife with. We got a 2-year-old, so there's just a lot of things taking time or wanting time, and so it's been a balancing act to prioritize the most meaningful and important things, I think, at each juncture, because obviously I know what my priorities are, but sometimes you'll tell yourself, right, for this little moment we're going to flex, we're going to do this way, we're going to do this way, because that's what the moment calls for. But then flexing back out of it is just as important. If you say, hey, like this week there was two different, well, first there was one day where I was going to be gone all day. And my wife was supportive, and she's like, that's great. So I was gone all day that day. Then there was another day where it was like, oh man, there's a ton of stuff going on today, and I ended up working late. And there was another day. So it ended up being 3 days this week. And it was like, on the third day, it was like, okay, this can't become a pattern. Like, I still have to make sure I'm making time for my family, because that's my top priority in reality. And so making sure that sort of as you're juggling everything, you always normalize back to the proper priorities, I think is really what it comes down to. Because otherwise, you feel yourself becoming a different person. I mean, whatever you spend your time on consistently shapes who you are. And at the end of the day, I'd like to be a successful businessman. I'd like to be a successful entrepreneur. I really have to be like a good dad. And that's a hard thing to make sure you keep in line. So, yeah, I think time management is always at the center for me right now.
Cool. I'd say maybe to piggyback on your time, where you put your time is where you end up kind of what you becoming. I'd say even more so it's where you put your thought, because that is really where your time is. So if you're with your kids, or if you're at a movie or whatever and you're still thinking about business and work, well, guess what? You're not in the moment.
Yeah.
So learning to actually really live in the moment, and the reason I bring that up is because that's something that I'm struggling with too. All of my time goes towards like work, business, and stuff like that, because that's where I want to put my time.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to like reel back and say, no, my kids need my time too.
Yeah.
And they need good solid time, not half dad time.
Full focus. So, yeah. I mean, that has been on my mind a lot. One of the things that I did is I set some daily habits and goals around like unobstructed time. And I set them really small, thinking they would be insignificant, and it's incredible how significant they are when you do them, when you execute on them consistently. So like, I started with just like 15 minutes of talking to my wife. Both of us have our phones away. Both of us are completely present in the moment. The kids are already to bed, and we're just gonna talk. For 15 minutes, we literally set a timer. We're just gonna talk. And when we first started, we were like, we don't have anything to talk about. You know what's going on, you know? And slowly, it got to where like we were sharing more and more. And I'm not good at sharing my feelings and different things. Like, I just don't. I'm not a sharer. I'm very succinct. It was incredible how much that helped our marriage. Same thing with my daughter. Like, I give my daughter a lot of time in passing, or a lot of like kind of attention, but 15 minutes of like, I'm gonna sit down, and if you say I want to go outside, we're going outside. And if you say I want to read a book, we're gonna read a book. And if you like, let's run, chase me, then we're gonna do that. It's incredible how meaningful that time is, and it's only 15 minutes. It's not a big part of the day.
Yep.
But doing that every day starts to change who you are, and it's super, super powerful. I think we live in a world that's so distracted and so noisy that we're losing touch a little bit with what it means to really live in that moment. And so anyways, I appreciate that feedback. I'm also focused on it. I think it's so pivotal and it's so difficult right now.
I think another point on that too is like a lot of people think it's like, oh, I need more time. That means I need to sleep less, or I need to eat less, or whatever it might be. There's always these kind of other options that we always go to of, you know, trying to get more done with our time. And in reality, it's how do I do more in the time that I've allotted?
Yeah.
And like, how do I make those minutes, seconds, the most impactful minutes and seconds I can possibly make them, so that I can move the stick forward, but without the detriment to everything else that life needs to be.
Yeah, I think focused execution, like, I think we've all been in a situation, I know I have, where I've done the same task way faster out of necessity.
Yeah.
And you just think to yourself, like, man, there's a big gap between my ability to perform. I don't know if it's reasonable to expect to perform at that level all the time. It's so mentally and emotionally draining to be just so zoned in and focused. But certainly we could do it more than we are, and probably our performance could improve, and all those performance improvements create time.
Yeah, and I've stripped my focus from, oh, I need to get more time, I need to put more time into work or business or whatever it might be, to, no, how do I make the most time of the time I've allotted myself?
Yeah, how do I get way more done in that time?
Exactly.
Or even reduce the time and get more done.
Exactly.
And that's big. I mean, like, for me, I've been super hesitant with our house and our property to, like, hire people to do stuff, because I'm just like, no, I don't want to spend money and it's expensive. And now I'm in a point where I've been forced to start doing that, and it's been the best thing ever to be able to be like, okay, I'm just not even going to think about that. I'm going to pay someone money, it's just going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, the more you can shift to that, the better, because it's just like, what's funny is once I put myself in that frame of mind, it changed from like, oh, all these reasons I can't get something done, to like, actually, here's the cost, and now can I do something about that cost? Like, can I find a neighborhood kid who will do my edging for me for super cheap, like $10 on a half acre? Like, that's incredible. Or $15 or $20, whatever it ends up being, depending on how long it takes him. But like, though you start out thinking like, oh, a landscape company costs a lot of money. Sure, like, there's other options. You know, if the problem is really just that you can't spend time on it, dig more. You know, and as I've done that, I think I've realized I'm not nearly delegating enough, and I need to get better at that to be able to get more done.
Okay.
All right. Wanted to ask you about what the most recent book you've read is, or at least your favorite book recently, and kind of what it's added to you.
Cool. So actually this plays very well into what we were just talking about. So the book that I'm currently in the middle of reading is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. It specifically talks about what we just talked about. Okay, how can I get more done in the amount of time that I have allotted, rather than saying, oh, I need more time. Yeah. It's like, no, how do you get more efficient with your time? It's by removing distractions. How many of us, pick up our phone and look at social media in between, answering emails in between our work and stuff like that? Like, each one of those distractions is it's an opportunity cost. Like, it's just that context switching alone is taking up hours of your time. Yeah. And it might not seem like it, but when you get into those flow states and those deep work states, because you don't hit a flow state necessarily when you're learning something. You know very well how much time you've been spending on that freaking task. It's just pissing you off and it's taking forever. Yeah. But it's still that deep work where you get done with it and you're like, freak, I learned a lot. Yeah. Like, I moved the ball. Yeah. And so I would say for me, that one has been a good paradigm shift for me of thinking, instead of thinking, again, I need to figure out how to get more time. I need to figure out how to, like, work after dinner or whatever else here's my set time that I'm going to try and work, and sometimes it's going to bleed over, and that's fine, but that's the exception, not the rule. Yeah, no, I think that's super cool. I'll definitely check that out. One book I'm reading right now that relates to that actually is called what is the title? I haven't thought about the title in a while. I don't have my phone on me. I guess I'm very focused on the moment. That's a good thing. Something about Superman. It's like I'll get you the title afterwards, but it's about basically what the book does. It looks at extreme sports, which have pushed the limits so dramatically in recent years, and it talks about how the way they've done that is through flow states, and so
yeah, it's just it would pair really nice with that. It's a super easy read. It's a light read because it talks a ton about just interesting, exciting stuff. You know, surfers, rock climbers. You rock climb.
I love rock climbing.
So
that's one of my hobbies that I do to disconnect.
So so yeah, I'll get you that. It's something like Decoding Superman or I don't know, something like that.
Cool.
All right, if we talked about this before, but one of the things I like to think about is just if you had all the money in the world, if you didn't have any money motivation, what would you spend your time on?
So ultimately, I would spend my time on the same stuff I'm spending my time on right now. I'm pretty happy with where my life's at and what I'm doing. Ultimately, to me, I care much more about feeling fulfilled and feeling like I'm actually doing something and making progress in my life than I do as much about the money. Don't get me wrong. It's still a lot of what I do is for the money.
Gotta make money.
Like, it's still for the money because there's still certain things that I want, experiences that I want to have that require certain levels of money, right?
Yeah.
And so, and stability and freedom and flexibility and everything else that comes with that thing. But in reality, that's just another tool in the toolbox.
Sure.
So it's, how do I add more tools to the toolbox and stuff? But I wouldn't change, honestly, hardly anything with what I'm doing right now.
What is it, I guess, what is it that makes you feel that sense of fulfillment right now then? What is it about your life that is most fulfilling?
So I'd say it's a challenge. I get bored really easy. And so when I do the same thing over and over again, that's immediately when I'm going to try and find something else. And so right now with where I'm at in life, it's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. I'm constantly looking at how to improve, how to do better. And so for me, that's what I need in order to kind of feel fulfilled and feel happy and everything else like that, is that accomplishment more than anything.
That's awesome. So, I love that. I think when you take money off the table, it's a self-reflection exercise I do all the time where I'm like, if money was off the table, would I still do all this the same way?
Yep.
And I think there's things I do the same way. For me, I'm not as confident that I would do everything the same way, especially I think I'd spend more time traveling. If money was just no option, no issue, if I could just have a nanny that would watch my kids, that would come with us, we could stay somewhere that was accommodating to kids, whatever, all those things. If leaving didn't mean that it would slow down the growth of my business, there's all these trade-offs that if you take money off the table and you think, oh, I would do X, Y, Z, to me it's useful to look at, well, how you should just do that now anyways. You should find ways to do that now anyways, so that you don't live with regrets. And it sounds like you're doing that really well. I'm trying to. I'm trying to catch you. So
maybe look at doing mini breaks, mini retirements. That's a Tim Ferriss thing.
Yep. No, that's
if you've got the time, or do a little bit of work on, if you can control it, do a little bit of work while you're traveling. That's what I do.
I've not pulled the trigger yet.
It works great that works great for me.
But I am trying to plan for next year at some point. That kind of mini retirement type concept. Definitely it's funny, so the 4-hour work week, I read it way back when, and I thought, you'd be crazy to just quit your job like that with no plan. And then I ended up doing that 2 years later. And eventually the conditions were right and I did it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, man, my business, I get that it's a good idea to set that mini retirement and force yourself, put that deadline so you force yourself to make the business be able to work without you.
Yep.
And I see a path to that, but I have not yet pulled the trigger on doing it because I need at least one full-time employee that can do the things. Right now the problem is there isn't anyone that can do the things that I can do, and I'm working on laying that framework and growing the team so that I can do that. So very much on the mind. All right, you're going to be speaking at a dev meetup in a few months, I think. Talk to us about that.
So as of right now, it'll be July 11th at the Realtor Building in Sandy, Utah. Okay. So I'll be going over Lightning Web components and kind of how they work, where Salesforce is going with them, and we'll do a little bit of an exercise on how to create it and stuff like that.
Hands-on.
More hands-on, yep.
Developers specifically, come check that out.
Yeah, and even if you're an admin, we'll walk through, you'll have the code, you can at least kind of see what it is. It'll be some copying and pasting and stuff like that, so you'll at least be able to make progress too, even if you're an admin.
Gotcha. Sweet. And then what's the best way for people to connect with you if they have more questions for you?
I'd say probably LinkedIn.
Okay.
I check LinkedIn probably more than I should.
Awesome.
Talking about the deep work. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel, and then I'm going to send it out on LinkedIn. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, connect with Brett. He'll be tagged in the comment. Brett, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.